Hey, Spencer.
Yes.
You want to see a dead body?
Which one?
Your own. Which kind of goes into this book we're going to read.
A little bit. Honestly, yeah. A little bit.
Ash was supposed to be in this cold open with us, but the computer just shit the bed. So, gotta wait on fucking update. Wonderful. Again. So we're gonna have to get a tablet, and then we can look up dirty stuff. Nasty. I'm not breathing that way. Oh, man. Hot today.
Hot tomorrow, too.
Hot yesterday. Gonna be hot next week. Maybe less hot. Hope it's less hot.
And it's weird because it's not necessarily like, because like you two, with you still kind of working outside, a good bit of your day, it's like, it's not hot like the actual sun is blazing on you. It's hot like you're inside of an oven.
It's like a wet heat.
Yeah.
It's like you're a brisket.
It's like somehow the heat's coming from everywhere.
It feels like the heat is almost from the inside of your body coming out all your orifices.
Yeah.
It's fucking terrible. Like, my head actually started, like, you get a headache because your head is, like, steaming. It's just boiling your brain, and it's hot. And I don't like it. I don't like any of it. But at least we don't live in Texas.
No, it's probably worse down there.
Yeah, it's like 118 degrees. Blah, fuck that. Also, at least if it was this hot, you'd think it'd kill the COVID. But no, can't do that. Oh, computer's updated. Ooh. Let's get to it, baby. Hey there, you are listening to the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast. I'm your host, Caleb James. With me today, Spencer, the Punjabi Playboy Church. I like that one. Big Punjab guy.
Yes.
Hanging around the Punjab prefecture. I don't know. Never been to India. Also joining us.
Really?
As you can hear giggling in the background. From Parts Unknown, Mr. Ashley Hatter. What's up, sir?
What's up, dude?
Just living the dream here with our malfunctioning equipment again.
Sounds like a personal problem.
It really is. Today's episode, we are talking about The Hike by Drew Magary. We talked about this briefly in, what was that, the Weird something or other? Weird Fiction episode?
Yeah.
Literally like 2 weeks ago with that.
That seems so forever ago.
Well, this week was the James Joyce fart fiction, so yeah, that was probably 2 weeks ago. I guess I should probably look up the synopsis for this, huh? Unless one of you guys want to wing it.
No, I think that's one professionally written. I think that would probably be the best for this story.
I was going to say,
agreed.
It'd be kind of hard to just break down the synopsis. I don't even know if there is an actual synopsis for this story.
It'd be kind of difficult, I would think.
Yeah.
Dude walks, weird shit happens.
Pretty much. Oh, yeah, here we go. There's a couple paragraphs. Funny enough, they couldn't just summarize it very quickly. From the author of Postmortal, a fantasy saga unlike any of you've read before, weaving elements of folktale and video game into a riveting, unforgettable adventure of what a man will endure to return to his family. That I like. In more detail, when Ben, a suburban family man, takes a business trip to rural Pennsylvania, why the fuck would you do that?
Yeah.
He decides to spend the afternoon before his dinner meeting on a short hike. Once he sets out into the woods behind his hotel, he quickly comes to realize that the path he has chosen cannot be given up easily. With no choice but to move forward, Ben finds himself falling deeper and deeper into a world of man-eating giants, bizarre demons, and colossal insects. On a quest of epic life-or-death proportions, Ben finds help comes in some of the most unexpected forms, including a profane crustacean and a variety of magical objects, tools, and potions. Desperate to return to his family, Ben is determined to track down the producer, the creator of the world in which he is being held hostage, and the only one who can free him from the path. This book does actually kind of play like a video game, if that makes sense. Like, it seems like there's a bunch of quests almost.
Yeah.
Weird adventures. I'm just going to go ahead and give this a nice spoiler warning. We're just going to spoil the fuck out of this book. You fine with that, Ashley? You just want to spoil it? Let's spoil.
Let's spoil it.
Let's spoil it.
Oh my God.
Before we start, let's give our ratings. I give this 5 out of 5 whiskey shots. It's been a while since I read something that I enjoyed this much.
Totally agree.
Absolutely. Yeah, I got, like, the ending gave me chills. I was like, oh my God.
I really did not expect everything to wrap up so perfectly. It was...
Yeah.
That
was insane.
Even though this book seems like it... I mean, it's kind of hard to say it'd be predictable, but, like, the actual... what happens you think would be kind of predictable, like what happens to Ben,
even especially considering like sometimes they just flat out tell you, and you're like, no,
but it just everything, like, and every chapter was a cliffhanger, and then you just get it was one of the most readable books I've ever really partook in, because you just keep you just want to find out what happens, you just keep going and going.
I think that's something we should talk about separately, like the story we need to talk about, but then we also need to talk about like how the way the book was set up, because I think that also was a big factor in like the readability of this book.
Well, let's
and slash style and all that.
We will rewind. I'm not going to get too in depth with all the weirdness because that'd be impossible, and I didn't write any notes for this because I'm professional. So he starts off. He said, from what you gather, not necessarily a shitty hotel, but just not a very good hotel in the rural Pennsylvania mountains.
Well, it still had keys, like an actual key.
Physical keys. So he wants to get some exercise and go for a hike on a trail. The first clue that this book's going to go awry is that the receptionist is like, we don't have a trail. There's no hiking. He's like, well, we're in the fucking mountains. What are you talking about? So he goes out and he finds a trail immediately. And he's like, oh, see? Starts walking. Pretty normal. First chapter is pretty normal. And then you get... there's a lot of good detail about kind of his family and stuff. I like too, he didn't really pack it on like throughout the story, even though his family is like his main driving point of what keeps him on the so-called path, which we'll get to. Like the details of the family and his past and his memories, they're put in such a way where it's not like info dumps or anything. You just get really good aspects of it without getting bored with it, because sometimes stories, like the author, they'll try to, touch on your feelings there a little bit, but they throw it on too hard, and you're just like, I don't really give a shit. But this one, you actually cared about his family. You're like, oh, okay. I also like that Ben, as a man, wasn't very manly.
No.
Even though he does some very manly shit in this book, none of it is, like, manly, really, till the very end. He is just kind of a dude that lives in, like, suburbia type of place, and he realized once he goes on this hike on this path.
Did they ever say what he did for a living? Just that he was out for like a meeting. Did they say what he actually did?
I don't remember them actually stating it. I got the idea. Well, doesn't he work with like numbers and money or something?
He was like a sales guy of some sort.
Is that what it was?
Okay.
Yeah, he like not a salesman, but something like that. Like he had to give numbers to some office dudes. I don't remember. Regardless, he has pretty much an office job. And when he goes on this hike and on this trail, like the very first thing you get was he had kind of an athletic background, but he had like a bad knee and just like a dude past his prime in his late 30s, like 38 years old.
Well, I think he said he'd play like high school ball, like high school football, I think, just like average.
Yeah, but like as of now, when the story takes place, he's not athletic really anymore. He's maybe in shape at best, but he goes on this trail and he's walking and he's memorizing it. And also I like that he's like addicted to his phone, but he's trying to stay off of it. Because that plays into the story, too, is him, like, wanting to look at his phone, but he has no service. Well, the first thing that runs amok is, because was he already kind of lost at this point? Like, he goes down, and he sees, like, a fence, and it's open, like a gate, and then there's a shed, and then he sees,
Yeah, he hears the, like, an engine or a motor or something like that going, so he goes to go, like, check it out.
Mm-hmm.
And gets, like, freaked out, and then, we see the dog-headed people.
The dog faces.
And you'd think at this point of the story, like, oh, these are the big bads.
Yeah.
These are going to be, like, these guys are going to be, like, because you think of the hike, he's out in the forest, he's starting to get lost, he's like, oh, this is going to be almost like a, like they're hunting him or something, like, you know what I mean? Nowhere near.
Well, yeah, because the way it starts, he's still by civilization. Like, when he's on this path, the one side, like, there's a split. There's a fork in the road, kind of. And one side, he can see, like, a dirt road, like the main road to the hotel. And then on the left side, he says he sees what he calls McMansions, like rich people's mountain mansions or whatever. So he's like, okay, I'm still in civilization. So even if he was lost, he would be like, okay. But then he sees one of these dog faces, which he doesn't realize is wearing a dog face at first, pulling a body of a girl, and her feet are chopped off.
Yeah, I think the feet are chopped off.
Yeah.
And then, of course, very predictably, he makes noise, and then they see him, and so he starts running for his life because they have a butcher knife, and was like one of them, one dog face. He's like, oh fuck! So he starts running, and again, not a hero. He doesn't want to save the girl who's already dead.
Was it one or was it two?
Well, there's two, but
Okay.
he saw the first one.
Yeah, okay.
So he's running on the trail. He's like, oh fuck. And then he starts to get away from this guy, and then another one pops out. And then this is where the football background, he's like, explains that he played football. So he bucks the dude over, keeps running. He's running for his life. And then that's when he gets lost on this trail. But like you said, you're like, okay. Like if you didn't read about this book beforehand, you'd be like, okay, this is going to be like these fucking weird guys. They're wearing Rottweiler faces.
Yeah.
So he's thinking, oh, all right, these guys are going to fucking chase me, hunt me, and then that's what you think the story's going to be. No.
Because, like, even in the beginning, it's still very, like, the weird is still normal. Like, with him finding that camp scene, or that campsite with the tent and stuff like that, and then it just slowly, like...
When he meets the old lady
is
when it gets bizarre. I mean, the camp... Because he goes to the campsite... Because he has to kind of hide in the mountains because he's worried about the dog faces, and it gets dark. And then it's like 30 degrees out. He's wearing shorts. He's fucking gonna freeze to death. He's like, oh shit. And that's how much he realizes, oh, I'm not really fucking manly. I'm not prepared for this. I don't know anything about wilderness, really. He stumbles upon a camp scene with a tent. There's nobody there. Starts to get weird because he goes to sleep or something and wakes up to what was his ex-girlfriend, or not his ex-girlfriend, the girl he liked in college.
An ex-crush or something like that.
Yeah, but she's the same age she was in college. And then what I like too is he did this a couple times in the book where when these moments happen, he immediately starts forgetting his life.
Yeah.
So he's sitting there and he's like, because he likes this girl and he's like, oh, he kind of wants to have sex with her. Then he's like, oh, but I got a wife and kids. And he's like, wait, what wife and kids? I don't have a wife and kids. I'm in college. He looks down. He's like all young looking.
He transfers to his whatever...
His college age.
Oh, but I mean, even because it happens multiple times to whatever age he is going on during that. He becomes that version of himself.
Mm-hmm. Just to speed things up, he has sex with the lady. They wake up. She's gone. And he's like, oh, that was just all of imagination. Like, that's fabrication. That didn't happen. And then he goes out and he sees the beers they drunk on her guitar. Then there's a note, stay on the path or you'll die.
Yeah.
He's like, oh shit. Speed it up. He goes on the path some more. Comes up to this old lady's house, old cottage. She's Mrs. Blackburn or...
Something like that,
Blackwell?
Blackwell,
I think it's Blackwell.
He has to dig up her garden for her, pull weeds, and he has to do a bunch of work, and everything's real old-timey. Yeah,
because she doesn't understand. He's like, can I use your phone? And she's like,
what?
Phone?
She doesn't know anything cars. She doesn't know anything he's talking about. She warns him to stay away from the woods. They reiterate the point about staying on the path. She tells him how to get to this town. What was the name? It was like an English-sounding town.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Portshire, maybe? Sounds
Portshire, yeah.
Speed up a little more. He goes on this path. And already, now you're kind of into Weirdville. Because he's worried about the dog faces still. It's still set where there's some it's a little bit magical and weird, but you also think, oh, it's still kind of realistic.
Because at this point, the lady also gives him this this bag they can
bottomless backpack
and these what were they seeds?
The seeds.
The
3
seeds and just other random things.
Yeah. Like the seed, she tells him if he throws on the ground at the right time, she tells him one will turn into a tower. And actually, I think that's when the first act of, okay, now this is just fucking bizarre. Yeah. He's on the path again to this Courtshire, and I guess he strays from it, right?
Yeah, because I think he sees a light in the sky, and he's like, oh, rather than going around on this path,
I'll go that way.
I just cut through, and...
Yeah, because if he gets off which this becomes a main point later, is you realize he can't die as long as he's on, no matter what happens, he won't die if he's on the path. But at the beginning, you don't know that. You're just like, oh, he's just maybe still in the real world.
Again, at this point, it's seeds. Everything's just getting seeded for later on.
But he goes off the path like he's not supposed to because he saw that light. And he thinks, oh, civilization. Because he still thinks what the fuck's happening in real world? And then the dog faces come back, and then he's like, oh, he throws one of the seed. Does he throw the seed on the ground?
I think you have to slam it into the ground.
Well, a big giant tower pops up, and he goes in it, and then he ends up throwing another seed, and a wolf comes out, eats the dog faces.
Or one of them.
One of the They ate both of them, I think.
I think he ate both of them.
Oh,
Yeah.
and they just keep on getting brought back.
Yeah, then the wolf tries to go after him while he's in the tower. He ends up getting out of the tower. Gets back on the path, goes to Courtshire. It's a beach town with like all these nice houses, but I like it because everything's so desolate. Even when everything seems like it should be really nice, they're just like not even abandoned houses, just like houses that were built but nobody ever lived in.
It wasn't like anything above like a second floor like gone except that one.
They were all, I think, just first floor houses except for one. He goes through, he tears everything up. Again, he goes off the path when he's no, he doesn't go off. I guess the path leads, like they explain, like the path has lines, but sometimes it opens up so you can explore. But he goes into the second house. He looks through everything, and then finally, which I really like how this scene is written, he goes up to the attic, and he doesn't want to, and he's very hesitant. He knows there's going to be something awful up there. And it's a giant 6-foot or horse-sized cricket.
Yeah, something deadly. Like.
Yeah. And then, like, it's really gross, and he ends up, like, fighting it and almost kills him. And then he punches through its eyeball or something. And then he runs outside. And then this is where the crab's introduced.
Probably one of my favorite parts of the whole book, especially now after finishing.
Yeah, the blue crustacean. You already immediately love it. Just calls him shithead, and it's really sarcastic and funny and snarky. Definitely my favorite character. But then, if just a minor spoiler for all the spoilers that are coming, if the crab's your favorite character, that means Ben's your favorite character because he's the fucking crab. He ends up how that was done was so cool, but we'll get to that. So. He has to go back up, scoop something out of the fuck. What was it?
It's like a disc or something.
Yeah, out of the
because there's this control panel that the cricket was guarding.
Yeah, then he used the control panel, and this scene was a little wonky to me. I couldn't picture it quite like the size of this boat. It was like a yacht, I guess, that came out of the water. Is that what happened?
But it hovered.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if it was like a futuristic yacht. It was a little strange, but yeah. Then he So he has to get on this thing, and
because it's a hovercraft. So.
Yeah, and he's like, "Hey, Crab, you want to come with me?" And the Crab's like, "Why the fuck should I, shithead?" Yeah. And he's like, "I don't know. Do you want to or not?" He's like, "Okay." And then so he has this crab companion, which is hilarious. Was there anything during the boat? Like, there's a lot of food on the boat and stuff, and
the boat was just a lot of back and forth between Ben and the crab,
which was great.
That's one of the things I really enjoyed in this book was like the dialogue and the people talking. And I don't know if that was maybe because like there was long stretches of Ben just being like by himself.
Yeah.
So like when you actually kind of whenever he met somebody, you met somebody. Like, you know what I mean? You kind of felt the same same way he did.
And again, there's memories dispersed all through this that like when he sleeps in this, while he's on the path. And the path isn't an actual, like, path. It's just, like, these lines that he has to be in between. So if it's on the ocean or on a boat or through a mountain, whatever it is, that's the path. But I'm not going to get into the memories too much, but the important thing about the memories was, like, it deals with a lot with his wife. And, like, the one really poignant scene that he remembers is one time she's, like, a nurse. Yeah. And she came home. She's just bawling her eyes out. She's destroyed. And it talks about how he was comforting her, and obviously she said she couldn't talk about what happened. Yeah. It would kill her if she talked about what would happen. And then she goes into like, I don't remember if he asked her if he just, thought like, oh, she killed somebody. It wasn't like somebody just died on her watch. Yeah. She actually killed somebody. And then they leave it at that. And then again, there's like a lot of other parts, like with his kids and different stuff. Fast forward, he gets to this mountain place. He wrecks, right?
Yeah, because he's sleeping. Because he's like, hey, Crab, I'm going to take a nap.
Steer the yacht, Crab.
Yeah, keep an eye on everything.
So he wrecks into this like big icy mountain iceberg thing or whatever. But fortunately, he finds all the because the path gives him all the equipment he needs. Just the basic equipment, like.
The path provides.
Nothing like over the top, just whatever he needs. So he gets like snow gear and spiked boots and all this shit.
Because that's another good thing, like another nice thing was like, with it being kind of a fantasy thing, like anytime something bad happened and he would have like the thing for it, like with that going on, if you're not careful, that can get kind of old and boring quickly, or just like, oh, come on again. But there was none of that in this. Like it all worked out and didn't seem like forced or weird.
Every chapter was pretty riveting.
Yeah.
Like, I was engaged, because a lot of books I read, there's some chapters you kind of zone out of. This one, I was engaged in every chapter. I was like, oh, fuck. You really want to know where this story's going all throughout.
And everything had a purpose.
Yeah, that's what I like, too, because there's so much that seems like it's just nonsense.
Yeah.
It's like, and I read some reviews after I got done with it, and the people that didn't like it was like, oh, this is just nonsense. It was like, just your typical finding your family story with the beginning and end, but everything in the middle is like a kindergartner wrote just, they're telling you a story and it's all nonsense. It's like, did you read the book? Because almost everything in the book had a purpose.
Yeah.
Like, all the nonsense he was going through, it was like an RPG. Like, it was obstacles you had to go through to continue your journey. Anyway, back to the mountain. Oh, we lose Ash again? Well, that's the call. Oh, fucking A. Apparently Ash went off the path. He's gone. I don't know what happened. Cut out, and he's just... It's not my computer this time. Where did we leave off? He was just getting to the island.
Yes.
The mountain.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And that was a cool scene, too, because the crab goes up ahead, and he's just like, you're going to want to close your eyes walking through this, and just kind of like...
He has spiked boots on, and he's walking, and he just feels like squishing, like he's just pretending, I'm in mud, I'm in deep mud. It wasn't mud, as you find out later. It was body parts and heads and gross shit like that. Then he gets to the mountain where he runs into a giant lady.
After climbing
a whole mountain.
That was like at a ridiculous angle, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
like,
and having his balls busted by a crab the whole time.
As it's easily just walking up it.
Yeah, so he gets caught up by this lady who eats humans, makes stew out of them. What was her name? Formosa.
Yes.
Or Formona.
Formona.
Formona. Long story short, he gets captured by her, and then a week, I think, goes by, and he's naked. A couple weeks. It was a long time. Whatever it was. He was there for a while. He gets all shitty looking and stuff. She strips him naked and stuff and puts him in a cave dungeon, and there's other people in this place that are like mentally crazy, but she offers him a challenge. It's like, hey, you could be my champion if you fight one guy or 5 little people.
Yeah.
He picks the one guy because he figures that'd be easier. Turns out to be one of the dog faces. He has a cage match with the dog faces to the death. This is where his manliness comes into effect again, where he's like, oh, I don't know if I'm manly enough for him. And then it goes into, like, there's a scene when he got punched in the face by a guy at the airport and all this shit. He,
And things, that his wife, they cut back to, his wife training him on basic, like fighting moves and just, how to grab somebody if they get close to you, to kind of just, separate.
Yeah, some years back she took up like jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. She got a lot of different interests all of a sudden, it seems. He, anyway, Ben has to fight this guy and he manages to best him. He kills the dog face. Like, oh, and then she comes back and was like, okay, and now you have to fight the 5 little people. It's like, what? And they just jump him. He's getting beat up by these little people, and then the crab saves him by get him a gun, right? Finds a gun.
I think gives him one of the seeds, has a seed, and like when he slams the seed down, that's how he gets the gun, or is that later?
I think the gun came from that pile.
Maybe
the crab, because he used the crab to get him a bunch of stuff while he was in jail. Regardless, he does get a gun, and then he points it at her, and then she ends up stripping him naked and puts him in the dungeon again. How does he get out of that? How does he get out of that dungeon?
Doesn't he just kind of like... He doesn't just climb out, does he?
No. Maybe that's when the seed comes into play?
Or does she bring him back for like another match?
I do not remember. Whatever it is, he ends up getting out. He maybe makes her a deal? I don't remember. I forget that scene.
Because him and the crab try to make a run for it, and that's when she catches him, and then takes all of his clothes and stuff, and then he gets up.
He was in there for a while. It was a pretty long scene, like a couple chapters of him in this fucking mountain prison. You'll find that time is not a factor in while he's on the path.
Yeah,
it just no matter what, he's just there. Anyway, so he ends up he does get away from the giant lady though. And he gets back on the path, and he's on a plane, but he's told, like, he knows he's going to have to come back to her at some point.
Well, then there's also a cool scene where he, shoots himself with like this tranquilizer.
That's what
thing.
it is. The seed gives him like a dart that he shoots in his leg and it makes him a giant.
Is that how he gets
Yeah,
out? Is that how he gets out? Or I thought that happened whenever... Because he had a gun pointing at her because when they were trying to leave, and I thought that's when he made himself big. But because then when he's big, then he makes her release all the other prisoners and lets him take whatever he wants out of her little like gold stash of things that she has and all that stuff. And then by the time he starts to leave is whenever he starts to come back to a normal size.
It was the second time he saw her that he turns into the giant, right?
No, because...
The first time.
Yeah, because the second time she pops out of a seed.
Fuck, I wish I could remember I got out the first time. Let's see if it's in the old book here. So Ben gets out of the mountainous cave with the crab, and they go on a great plane. A big plane with the path, and there's horses, wild horses running, and all this stuff, and that's pretty uneventful. Just some jabberjawing and all that. But then they come upon a house, and there's a little boy there named Peter, which is his son. And it's on the boy's on the other side of a fence, and there's a big emotional moment. Ben wants to hug the boy, and he's trying to climb the fence, but if he gets off the path, he's gonna die because the outside of the path tries to
kill you.
Yeah, it tries to pull him away from the path. It's like, come here, tricks you. It plays with your mind. But he doesn't fall for it. He ends up going on the path some more, and he goes, and there's a castle in the distance, and there's a tent, and he stays in the tent. But there's the part with the crab. Him and the crab have to part ways.
Because there's a fork in the path.
Yeah, on the left side, the left path is an invisible barrier that he cannot go through. And there's a moment where... Because by this point, you really love the crab.
You're the crab's the best part of the story.
Yeah, it's like his best buddy. You're like, oh, I love this fucking crab.
He's on the cover.
Yeah. And then the crab's like, hey, man, this is where we part ways. Like, what? And he's like, I gotta go left, you gotta go right. And it's very emotional. Crab leaves and just walks right through the visible barrier and goes on his way. Ben has to go right. Ben eventually comes to a tent.
What do we want to... There was... I know we kind of brought it up earlier, but before the crab went on his way, they had a talk. And that's when the crab...
Oh, yeah. That was the big reveal, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's when the crab reveals to Ben that he's Ben.
The crab reveals that everything they just went through, Ben is going to have to go through again.
Yeah.
Because the crab is Ben.
Yeah.
The crab, the reason why, like all the moves that the crab made and all the things he said, he knew it because he already been through this.
Again, plays back to a couple of scenes earlier whenever like Ben wants to give the crab a name and he's like, no.
Yeah.
No, shithead, no.
I'm just crab. Yeah, so he finds out that that's what's going to happen to him is he's going to turn to a blue crab and then he's going to have to get himself.
And he drops this bombshell that it's at least going to be 10 years.
Yeah.
At the very least.
At least 10 years.
Because this also explains a lot because there was a scene when they were still in the mountain prison that the crab's like, hey, if I help you, you have to promise me you keep going. And Ben's like, why do you care? And he just promise. And he's like, okay. And then so whenever he reveals that they're the same person, essentially, you know, that it kind of makes a little bit more sense now.
Yeah, but it makes you see it as like, you know, is it endless loop that he has to go through, and then, well, the blue crab, I guess, was the first iteration of Ben, because the crab's never made it to the left yet, so this was his first go-around, I guess, and then he tells Ben, you're going to become the crab, and you're going to have to lead yourself through all this, and go through all this bullshit from the crab's point of view. We'll get to that, but that's cool too. So anyway, they split. He goes to this tent. The inside of the tent is cool. It's like a giant library.
I wish I had this tent.
Yeah, with all the books in the world, and he does a lot of reading, learns
which he can fold up and put into his bottomless book bag, or backpack, or whatever it is.
And then he finds out all the things he kind of needs to know how to kill these monsters that are going to be showing up. Except for, there's one ingredient. There's a monster called Vorus, like a Dracula type deal. He's going to have to kill Vorus, but he has to make a poison, and there's one ingredient that's, like, ripped out, or...
Yeah, because a lot of the books are all, like, beat up or just old.
Well, the way they said that the one book you find, which is by, I think, Mrs. Blackwell, or Blackburn, or whatever her name was, looks like it's been read thousands and thousands of times, so it kind of alludes that maybe somebody else or him has been through this a bunch of times. Well, obviously, he did it once.
Yeah.
Then he gets prepared. He goes to the castle. The castle's pretty cool. Or did he go to the castle, or did he have to go? That's when he had to go back to Fremona because he had to get one of the ingredients was human meat.
Yeah.
He had to get some of her stew. And then that's when he goes and she's going to eat him or whatever. And then he turns into the giant.
Yeah, yes.
Threatens her. She gives him the stew and some other stuff. Then he leaves and he goes and he's a giant and he crosses this moat of blood or whatever it is. And then as soon as he crosses, he goes back to normal and he almost dies. And, he almost dies a lot of times. Goes inside. And there's a reception guy at the reception desk who's really cool. He's like gross. Old. What did they say? He's like a wax figure almost.
He looks like wax, yeah. And he always had, anytime that he gets described, he always had either like a half crooked smile or like a broken smile or like, you know what I mean? He found different ways to describe it the same way without just saying the same thing over and over again. Yeah,
and the guy won't talk, and there's also another thing that pops up, which you realize around this time is every time he goes through some horrible shit, like he gets trapped for weeks or months or fights off monsters or whatever, he gets like a period of just everything kind of nice. And even the crab told him, was like, hey, you're going to go through a lot of awful, awful shit, but a few good things will happen.
Yeah.
It's like there's some parts that you'll enjoy, but mostly awful, awful shit. He's like, great. So anyway, there's not much with the reception guy. He's just helping him, and Ben does some drinking or whatever. Then it's time to retire to his room. And, what was it, 909 or something?
Something like that, yeah.
906, I don't know. He goes upstairs, and then I forget the name of this creature, but it's nothing but mouths.
Yeah, demon mouth, wasn't it?
Maybe. It was just those monsters just made of nothing but mouths. And then if it bites you, your wound will turn into a mouth.
Yeah. And
he's like, oh, fuck.
And it had, like, spider legs.
Yeah, and it was gross. And it does bite him, and his wound does turn into a mouth. And he's like, oh, fuck. And it's rotted funk coming out of its mouth. It's just a very gross creature. And I forget how he kills that. He has to shoot paint. Yeah, he has a paintball gun.
That he took from Formosa. And, like, he had to drown, like, each mouth in paint.
Yeah.
To stop
he has to shoot all the mouths, including the one on his arm.
And say, is that how he got it to go away?
Yeah, then it just went away and it was just like a line. And then he's like, oh, fuck. And he hurries up and he runs into his hotel room. And then he's like, oh, fuck. He realized another ingredient on his list is a body of the undead, which is what these creatures are called. So he has to go chop a chunk out of the dead body, which the mouth monster turned into like a regular looking dude.
Yeah.
After he killed it. So then he gets that, and then he goes back into his hotel room. And then I think he just like, it's like a really, really nice hotel room. And then I think he falls asleep, and then he wakes up to Vorus. He's the main monster, the main bad guy.
Yeah, because he's just kind of like hanging above his bed.
I think the balcony was open.
Yeah.
And again, there's a lot of like really cool descriptions of the scenery and stuff, things he sees and desolate wastelands and stuff. But around the hotel, it looks like beautiful California wine orchards. Yeah. It's like the most gorgeous place ever. But then he wakes up to shitty Vorus, and Vorus has these fucking evil eyes that burn into you and like...
And then he had poisonous talons.
Yeah, and he's like a fire monster. He's fucking horrible. He scoops him up and like he's crushing. He's like burning his ribs.
Yeah, because I said like I think like the claws are poisonous, so like as it's holding him, and it's weird too because like, he just takes him and he just takes off for like miles and miles, like and like up into the sky too, and then just like drops him off in this like Sahara desert, just wasteland.
And because when they're flapping through the fucking sky, Vorus is taking them, they go over all the orchards and stuff, and you realize that's all just pretty much bullshit. That's not what's really out there. It's just all desolate wasteland for as far as the eye could see. He's like, no, drops them in a plot. This is where the story gets really like dark and evil.
Yeah.
Because it's just like when you read this this is many chapters, when you're reading this part, it's just like, holy fuck. I don't know if it was just me, but it really felt like you're there and you're just like, oh god, what a nightmare that would be. Because he gets stuck. Vorus, who doesn't speak, and he has these... What are
Smokers.
Smokers, is that what they're called? They, I think there's just two of them, right?
Yeah, just two of them.
They're these mouthless, ghost-looking monsters with, again, I think they have burning eyes of some sort, too. And they just watch him constantly. They don't sleep or anything. And if he tries to escape or anything, they smother him and fill his lungs full of ash, and they're just like really, really awful. And what Vorus wants him to do is
to build him another castle.
Build a fucking castle by hand. And I was like, oh no. It's very terrible. So, and he has to constantly work except for when it's time to eat and time to sleep, or else these things will smother him.
As long as the sun is out, he works, I do believe.
Very backbreaking labor. And again, there's more memories and stuff dispersed throughout, but he's digging this the foundation pretty much. Just digging out sand.
The wind keeps blowing and bringing the sand
Very
back
limited tools, a shovel and some shit. There's a red pickup truck in the distance that he always wants to like think, oh, if I escape, I can get it. And I think he even tries a couple times.
Because that's where all the supplies come in for each time that, you know, whenever Ben got grabbed up, he also was able to keep hold of his backpack, which had the tent in it. So at least
he got to keep his tent.
He got to keep his tent, and he got to keep his bag. And like the smokers would come in, but they would never mess with him unless if they had to like get him to come out to start working. Until
before we get there, because throughout this whole thing, he's always drawing this one scene he had on his phone of his family. He ends up breaking his phone along the way out of anger, but because it won't turn on eventually or something. But he has this scene memorized, so he keeps drawing it. And then he finds a rock, and he calls that Peter, and he tucks it in. He had a fox doll that he got from Ramona.
Yeah.
And he was pretending that was his daughter. So every night, like, because he ends up in this desert place on this thing for 6 years, just digging this foundation by himself with the smoke monsters. And he sleeps in his tent every night, and he ends up, like, because he's going crazy pretty much. He tucks in the rock and the fox doll. And he pretends they're his kids. He even like rides them around on his back, and like pretty much they're his kids at this point. Like that's how he thinks they're his kids. Only thing keeping him sane.
Wilson, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then what did he do?
I think he just like mouthed off to the smokers like too much, like because
they burnt his tent down while he was digging. Like he watched. And his backpack, all his stuff, except for the poison for Vorus, which he hid, and he dug a hole and hid it outside, which was very smart. The
only thing was left was the rock, wasn't it?
Yeah, everything, the whole library, everything burnt down. All he had left was the rock, which was Peter. So again, he was still cherishing the rock. He's like, oh no. And then Vorus one day just dropped off another fellow, Mr. Cisco.
Yeah.
Cisco's a great character because he's like a 1400 Spanish explorer who hates the English and other He hates pretty much everyone. He hates the guy who said they named America after because Ben has to, kind of catch him up to speed. He's from 1400s or whatever, so he has to be like, hey, because the Spaniard wants to find the new world and all this stuff.
Because the Spaniard actually thinks that like this is part of
Earth.
Yeah.
Normal Earth. Yeah, and the Spaniard is also a fellow who's on a path.
Because he's also an explorer, so he's just like, he kind of almost takes the stuff a little bit more in stride almost.
Yeah. So there's a lot of funny back and forth between those two, and then obviously that guy's helping him. Another 4 years go by, so 10 years total. And they have some of the castle built, and by this point he's hiding the poison in one of the stone walls they built. And him and Cisco, who have to live outside now, and Cisco has his own endless bag, which is good.
And a mat.
It's like a satchel, and and a mat, which they both lay on. But no tent.
Gives them like the kind of the dreams.
Yeah, and it makes them like it's comfortable, I guess. So they sleep on this fucking mat and stuff, and they become buddy, and they have like some spoiled brandy, and they're all Cisco's kind of going crazy too. So they're both going crazy, but they learn a lot from each other. And then finally,
because he teaches Ben a lot of like navigating and just like how to see things, which pay off when he's becomes a crab.
Yeah. And Ben has tried, he has one seed left by this point, and he tries to smash it many times throughout the years to get something, and nothing happens, so he's just trapped. Well, he's tried everything too, from hair to sand to rocks, everything he put in this poison to try it, because it has to glow, to find the one missing ingredient that he doesn't know. Well, finally it comes to him, because he has like his dad's ring, there's a whole scene about that, and like his wife's ring or something.
Which, the cool thing about the ring is that he used that ring to like murder the dog face, because he was driving it like into his skull.
Yeah, But he tries everything, and then he finally realizes it's gold is the missing ingredient.
Gold.
And guess who happens to have a gold tooth? Cisco. And by this time, Ben is all rotted up. He's disgusting. His teeth are all fucked up. Well, Cisco doesn't want to give up his tooth.
And Cisco's also a little bit of like a religious man.
Yeah, he's very religious.
So he is more inclined of believing in like, you know, that this might all be for something. And Cisco's like, well, if you want my tooth, I want one of your teeth.
Yeah. So to speed things up, he rips Cisco's tooth out. Cisco rips his tooth out. They put the gold tooth in the poison.
And it glows.
The fucking smoke monsters come to kill him. He slams one of the seeds down, and now it works, and it turns into a vacuum. They suck up the ghost, and there's a funny scene there, too, with Cisco. Like,
he doesn't know what a vacuum is.
Yeah, he actually lets the one out. And so they do that. They kill the smoke monsters. Vorus comes back. No, Vorus doesn't come back.
Well, no, they don't kill what they do is they
trap him in the vacuum.
And then they bury the vacuum in sand because
Vorus sees what they see.
So if they see the dark, he sees that it's still dark out and doesn't have to come back out.
They make a break for it. They get in the fucking pickup truck and they just drive. Back on the path again. Finally, they get really, really far away. Ben realizes he left the rock. His son, Peter, the rock, has a horrible breakdown. Gets over it. They find a convenience store that has a gas station where gas is free. They break into the convenience store. Funny scene where Cisco's introduced to modern energy drinks and junk food and all that stuff.
And there's also like, because he's like, how do we get in? And Ben just smashes the window in.
Yeah, he just throws something through the window.
And he's like, you wanna do the other window? And he's like, no. And so they pack up on stuff. They fill up Cisco's satchel of things, and they hit the road again.
Lots more driving. They end up at another hotel castle thing. Now, the first hotel, the outside looked like a medieval castle. The inside was super modern and nice. This hotel, the outside is super modern and nice, like a big office building, but the inside is all medieval, dungeony, castle looking. Same reception guy.
And because there's like a code you have to hit to get in, and while Ben's trying to figure it out, Cisco takes something to try to smash the window, and he's like, "What? It worked for the."
Yeah, but it didn't work this time, and he's like, "Whatever." They figure the code. They go inside. Reception guy's there, and this time the guy talks, right?
A little bit more. Well, because I think he talked last time, but I think this time he talks a little bit more.
When the first time he didn't talk, because I remember on the second time, Ben's like, "Oh, you can talk?" He's like, "Yeah."
Well, no, wasn't that the end on the train?
Yeah, that is the end on the train. So the guy doesn't talk either time.
Yeah.
At the hotels. That's right. They do some stuff in the hotel. They go up to fight Vorus. More monsters. There's a scene with a big wall of fire, and they have to pray, but it's to an altar of Vorus, and Cisco's like, "No, evil god, we don't pray to that," and they pray to something else. He runs through the flames. Ben ends up following. They come upon Vorus. He's in a casket, which is a very painstaking thing to open up the casket.
And they literally have to
like a coffin.
And they literally have to pry his mouth open.
Yeah, they pry his mouth open, dump some of the poison, which is, after 10 years, is super rotted because it was human meat stew, and it was very disgusting by this point with everything else he put in it. So it's like they open the bottle up and like they're throwing up. It's just fucking gross. But they pour some in his mouth and they try to trap him and hold him down. He ends up breaking free, spits the gross stuff in Ben's face, is actively about to murder both of them. And then
they slam a seed down.
Yeah, I guess he had 2 seeds left, huh? So the second seed he slams down, turns into Fremona. He's like, "Fremona, eat that guy," or whatever. So she eats Vorus, and then he's like, "Hey, here's a chaser." Gives her the disgusting poison. She eats that, and she's like, "Oh, that's disgusting." Kills Vorus.
We forgot earlier, when Ben was a giant, he introduced Fremona to
the cow, hot dogs.
The hot dogs.
Yeah, it's a funny scene because he had little hot dogs, and when he got big, the hot dogs got big.
Yeah.
They were like car-sized or something, and she really liked cow meat, and she can't eat human meat anymore. So, yeah, I want cow. So they tell her about the grocery store.
So she just takes off. She's like, "All right, peace, guys." Just takes off running.
Yeah, and then by this point, too, I think Ben realized or learned that Fremona is a part of the path. Everything's just a part of the path, so... Yeah. They're like, she's just always been there. He tries to find an explanation. Hey, wouldn't you be happier doing, not living in a mountain with? And he's like, "No, this is where I always been. This is where I always will be. I love it." So the two, Cisco and who, by this point you love both of them. Again, like the first one with the crab and Ben. Now you're like, "Oh, Cisco, you don't want to see him part." They get in the truck again and they end up at a beach place. It's like a beach resort or a beach house. A beach house, I guess.
Something like that,
and there's 3 paths. One is just the ocean, one on the left, and then one that's just the beach house on the right. So they're like, oh man, I think Cisco's the one's like, we gotta split up or whatever. Or they know what's gonna happen.
I think Ben has to say that they have to.
Yeah, but they spend the night drinking beers and having a good time and stuff. And then Cisco leaves. He's like, hey, here's how you drive a truck, and then he takes the truck.
Because throughout the thing too, he keeps on asking Ben if he could. He's like, can I steer this this wagon or something? And he's like, no, absolutely not.
But he ends up, driving away in that thing. And then, which I want to get to the point about what was Cisco's meeting with the producer, who's this overlord apparently. Because throughout the whole book, there's like this producer that's running the show here, and that's who Ben has to see. So Ben knows what's going to happen. He's going to turn into the crab because there's like a potion right there or something. And he's like, all right, well.
But he takes like a good week.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to take a vacation here. So he sits there, there's all his food and stuff. He takes a week. And then like a big storm or something start to come. And he's like, all right, I guess that means I got to go. Vacation's over. He drinks the thing. He already knows he's going to turn into a crab. So, because even when he's like with Cisco, he's like, I got to drink this and I'm going to turn into a crab. He's like, what? So he turns into the crab.
Which they do an awesome way of describing.
Yeah, the transformation of the crab is amazing.
And then, the transformation back into a human was good too.
And then just how his adventure takes off there, he has to go in the ocean now. Yeah. And then it's literally like a crab. Yeah. Like just through the eyes of a crab with really bad vision and a lot of skittering. And
what kind of like the extra fish pots he likes to eat. Yeah. Because they're just like the leftovers.
It's really enjoyable, and then he ends up coming upon a boat, or he gets caught by fishermen on this boat. And this book does this a lot, where all of a sudden he just ends up, whether it's through memory or dreams or something else, it's just like a different world. Well, this one is the end of the world. Yeah. He comes to, and he's still the crab, and he ends up, because they're trying to eat him, and he escapes, and everyone has this super, like, crazy technology, like these wrist things, like hologram TVs, they're all watching, but everybody's starving to death. He's like, what the fuck? So he gets away from everybody, he's on the end of the boat. And then he looks up, he sees New York City, and it's in ruins. And then he looks up at the sun, and then it turns super bright red, and then just burns out. And then everything just starts freezing. Really cool scene, and he ends up falling in the frozen water.
And that's like, through like, when they were in the desert, the night they would have 2 moons. Yeah. And there was just like a whole bunch of cool things like that throughout the book.
Yeah, because like in the weird world he's in, like this celestial bodies don't make any sense. Like the universe, like, the star patterns are all different. The constellations are weird. Like there's 2 full moons all the time. Everything's like strange. But anyway, in this future, he pretty much sees the end of the world. And then he comes back to, and he's just a crab again. And then eventually he reaches the beach where, who does he run into? Somebody fighting a giant cricket. Yeah. It's Ben. And then you're like, holy shit, now another loop. I think they fast forward through that part though, right?
They just kind of did like some of the highlights, like
you go through the highlights of like
whenever Ben's in the mountain prison,
climbing the mountain, in the mountain,
you get to see what Crab was doing, like him searching for things.
Like I said, this book does a really good job of making sure everything has a purpose. Yeah. So all the things that went on during Ben's journey initially are revealed through the crab when he goes through it. So you're like, okay, this is really cool. Now you get to see some of the stuff you didn't see before, and then you realize, oh, the crab like knew that Ben was always going to survive because he already did this. He knew everything that was going to happen. So, and everything he said was almost like a script. So all that cool dialogue and funny dialogue was like a script. He knew what he was going to say before he said it.
He was in like, even wanting to say things, I find myself saying what I already said.
Yeah, he was pretty much on a big replay. And then again, they come up to the fork in the road, and this time the crab gets to go left, and then
so you follow him.
Yeah. How does he turn back into a human?
There's like he comes across to an area where there's like a table, and he hears a voice asking if do you want to be human again, and he's like yes, because at this point he's been a crab for a couple years too. Yeah. So like the vision is really, really bad. He's having trouble moving.
He's about to die, and he comes to Mrs. Blackburn or Blackwell, whatever.
Was it her again, or was it?
Yeah, it was her again, because she's like, it's like kind of like the Matrix. She's like one of the main top people. And he's under her table, and he's like being a crab, being crabby, and he wants to like kill her or something. But she ends up turning back into a human right before he dies. And there's this train he's got to get on. And he gets on the train, and that's when you get the reception guy again who talks this time.
There's also a cool part where like, she's like, you have two options.
Yeah, she gives him a gun.
She's like, you can go on the train. It will take you to the producer. It could be 15 minutes. It could be 100 years.
She even told him, I think one guy, or no, the producer ends up telling him it was like a guy that was on the path for 1,000,000 years.
Yeah. He's like, or you can take this gun and you can step off the path.
Shoot yourself.
And you can shoot yourself when it's over. And like that was like a kind of cool scene. And, just more like temptation to see, which he takes the gun and is like, I'm taking the gun, but I'm going to go on the train.
Just to skip through, because we're almost at an hour here. He gets on the train. He ends up going through the train to the fucking head of the train. He takes over the train, and then at some point the train's flying up into the sky, and then he...
Because they do another callback to whenever he was a kid, and he wanted to ride these roller coasters, but he was so afraid.
His drunk dad.
His dad, who's mostly a shithead most of the time, actually kind of helps him get through this by telling him, like, act like you're controlling
the train,
or
the roller coaster.
So like he starts leaning into it, which then he does on the train, and then he goes through like a triangle that's in the sky or something.
And, like this whole book's really weird, but he ends up flying, and then he goes through like a triangle in the sky, and then he's in what does he end up in? Is like an office or something? And he has like
it's just an all white room.
Yeah, with like a receptionist again, but it's not the creepy guy this time. But he ends up going and talking to a producer who's just like an old timey movie producer, and then the guy gives him the option. It's like, hey man, hey baby, keeps calling him baby, hey baby. There's two doors. If you take the door on the left, you go to your regular world with your family.
Everything's back to normal.
Or if you go on the right, you are on the path again, but you control everything, and you're essentially God, and you can make all your dreams.
Basically in heaven.
Yeah, and that old life, there's nothing even there, doesn't exist. You get to do whatever you want in this door. And you have your family, everything. It's pretty much paradise.
And there's good back and forth between those two characters. Like, we can't get into all of it, but there's really good, just, well, what if I do this? Or what if I, like, you know what I mean? Just like all the questions you would have, that you have at this point, gets asked,
And
so.
remember, he's really, really fucking beat up by this point. He's all old, because he's like, in his 50s now. Because he's been on that path for so long, and he's all broken down. I think they say he's 48. Because I don't know if he had technically aged when he was a crab.
Yeah.
But whatever, however old he is, he's old. A lot older than when he started. But he thinks, because this path keeps tricking him this whole time, so he thinks it's a fucking, setup. Sure. If he goes to the right, something bad's going to happen. Or if he goes to the left, something bad's going to happen.
Because isn't there food here too? Because isn't that how he gets the knife?
Yeah, they give him food and champagne. There's always champagne. Yeah. So he sticks a knife in his head and pretty much cuts himself in half and splits into two because the producer's like, you can control whatever or something. Or he comes to the realization that he controls what happens.
Because, he's not talking to the producer. He's talking to the executive producer.
Yeah, it's not
because Ben makes a mark when he gets on the
Ben's
train.
Like, I'm the producer.
And she's like, you're getting it now.
Yeah. Turns out the whole time Ben was the producer that he was trying to... There's a lot going on. But he ends up splitting in two. Old gross Ben goes to the right door.
Which is awesome because he starts to cut himself in half and then he literally is pulling another person out of him. It was pretty cool.
Then young 38-year-old Ben takes the door on the left to his old life. And remember, he's the producer now. But he ends up going back to his normal family. Yeah, he comes back. He's on the fucking trail. Goes to the shitty hotel. Calls his wife. He's like, misses her. So he just says, fuck this office meeting or whatever. Goes back to his house.
Yeah, because before he goes back to his life, the other producer is like, you can go back, but you can't ever speak a word of this. You can't write it down.
You'll die immediately.
The instant you even think about it, you die. So that's another thing. Like, how do you go back to that life?
You have to act like it never happened.
And you just have all this inside of you that you can't ever tell anybody about.
Well, this whole story wraps up so cool because he goes back to his wife and he sees his kids and, obviously he's overcome with emotion and stuff. But he sees his wife and she sees the look in his eyes. And then he remembers when that night she came home from what he thought was work.
Yeah.
When she said she couldn't tell him what happened. It would kill her.
Yeah.
And then, he also remembered that she killed people.
Yeah.
He realized she was on the path. That's what happened to her.
And all those things that she learned were after she came back and helped teach Ben, not knowing that was going to happen.
That's why she was into jujitsu and painting and all this stuff, is because that's what she was on the path. That's what happened.
Which I would I would buy this exact same book.
With her story?
With her story, and then just, like, if you need some room at the end, throw Cisco's in there, too, because, like...
Well, I want to touch on that in a second, but then what Ben ends up doing is, like, they look at each other, and she realizes they don't have to say anything because they can't, they'll die. He realizes she was on the path. She realizes he just got off the path. So, obviously, that's how it ends, and there's, like, a connection. You said Cisco. Because Cisco, we brought up, he's super religious, 1400s Catholic. What do you think when he gets to see, like, the executive producer? Like, I don't know what choice he would make, because I don't know because he believes God, he believes this is still Earth.
Or what he would even see.
Yeah, and
you know what I mean? Because that could be completely different. But they did do a cool nod, because on his way home, he sees an exit sign for Cisco, whatever.
Yeah, and a Fermona Road, and, like, all the things that he encountered were street signs and stuff. Yeah, but Cisco, but again, not everybody makes it off the path.
Yeah.
A lot of people,
the way they made it seem like is that a lot of people don't make it off the path. Well, because even Fermona's, like, all those dead bodies that he walked through, and all those crazy people, they came off the path.
Yeah.
So that also opens up another question, like, how often does this happen?
Yeah.
How, like...
Well, if you have all of human history, like he said, like the executive producer told Ben, there was one person who was on the path for 1,000,000 years.
He's like, you're thinking too small.
Yeah.
Oh, like, when it comes to, like, the scope of everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Ben's journey, which was over 10 years, was actually on the shorter side of the path. Well, no, the 10 years was just him in the desert.
Yeah, so it's closer to, like, 15, 20 years, probably.
Yeah, he was there for a long time.
Because they were like, oh, you're kind of making good time.
Yeah, especially if somebody was there for 1,000,000 years. Yeah. Like, holy shit. So you don't know how long you don't know if Cisco ever made it, but say Cisco did, his decision would be very interesting. And again, if the path is tailored to the people, then maybe they wouldn't be an executive movie producer style guy. Probably wouldn't even be called the producer.
Yeah, because a cool thing was, like, when he's having that conversation with the producer, he's basically telling Ben, like, all this is fake, all this is made up, and he's like, well, what about Cisco? And he's like, that was just, like, a weird, like, overlap kind of thing.
Yeah, that was really cool, though. As far as the writing style on this book, I really enjoyed it, because I saw some people say it was very basic, and I was like, ooh, that was before I read it. I didn't find it basic at all.
I wouldn't say basic, but I would definitely say, like, other authors would, like, this book would be twice the size that it was.
Yeah.
Just, like the whole changing into a crab would have just been a chapter itself, like, you know what I mean? And, like, what you were talking about earlier, I think that these, like, because a chapter wasn't any more than, like, 10, 15 pages.
No.
And like, they're smaller pages, so it always moved quick. It always had a purpose.
Well, I think this book's over 300 pages, and I maybe read it in 2 or 3 days.
Just under. It's like 278.
Yeah. But I read it very fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, you read a chapter, it would take, like, 5-10 minutes maybe, depending.
Because like, could you imagine, like, we were talking about, like, you're never going to find a bigger Stephen King guy than me, but could you imagine Stephen King trying to tell this story? It'd be over 1,000 pages.
Yeah, it would be way too long. You think with how short it is for the story that spans such a ridiculous length, you think, if it's that short, there's no descriptions, really. No, he did a very good job of describing things in very good details. He only used a couple words he used the words that were most needed.
He didn't go overboard. He was to the point.
I think a lot of authors could learn a lot about writing effective style and engaging story structures from reading this book.
Again, like we were saying, like, everything in the story had a purpose. It's almost like not every word, but like it was like the things that are meant to be in here are meant to be in here. There's no fat on there. You know what I mean? It's very trim. Like,
what I thought was very incredible was the fact that the pacing was very well done and it was very straightforward, and everything continued yet huge parts of the story were like dragging on and on and on, yet the pace didn't slow down something. Like he's 10 years in one spot, yet the pace never slowed down.
Because like, he would like, within one chapter, he jumped like 6 years and then like another 4 years because there was nothing to... Ben was working.
Yeah. That's all you got.
That's all you need to know. Ben was tirelessly working.
Whereas Stephen King would want to really break down how grueling the work was. Drew Magary managed to do that in like one chapter. Like that was all that was needed to really show how hard, and then the rest you can just gloss over.
How many times do we say when we talk about either any kind, whatever form our fiction takes, and be like, I think I know where this is going. I think this is gonna happen. No,
not one thing in this book happened the way I thought it was going to happen.
No clue. Because, like, no way would I would have thought whenever Ben and Crab separated and that bombshell got dropped, I would never have thought that the next thing would have been in a desert for 10 years.
No.
Making a castle for... like a Voldemort kind of, monster thing,
Well, I didn't even put the connection that the crab was Ben until
he told, yeah. I didn't know that until he said it.
Even because he gives clues, but they were so just vague enough you didn't realize.
Even the crab has a scar on his face, where Ben has a scar on his face from when the dog attacked him.
We glossed over that, but he got attacked by a dog when he was a kid. Which, that brought up your point about the memories, where we talked about that off air. The memories in this story, a lot of them were played like how Ben wished they would have happened, and then it shows how they really happened. So one thing, he's out with his buddy when he was a kid, and they're fucking blowing shit up and being stupid.
Drinking a little bit.
Yeah, they come upon this crazy dog that his friend riles up, and then they get away from the dog, they go play games, and they have a fun time. But the real ending is actually Ben got mauled by the dog, and it fucking gave him like 70 stitches to the face, and his fucking life changed forever.
Nobody wanted to talk to him.
Yeah, his friend was kicked out of whatever, I don't know. But anyway...
we're definitely not covering enough of it.
No.
Even if you've never read this and you heard us talk about this complete thing, read it because it's complete. You get a completely different feel.
Yeah, there's so much more. And how did you feel when you first started? Like the first up till the dog faces, even up right before the campfire scene, it really came off as just is this gonna be like a horror book or because it was funny. But then with that, it was pretty horrible with the fucking dog faces and stuff.
And you know what? Because whenever, before we started, when I was trying to look up some other stuff that he did, or just some things, just in case if we needed something to talk about, and the book is fantasy.
Yeah.
Is in the fantasy category, which makes sense after reading it, but as I was reading it, I never felt like I was reading a fantasy novel.
You know what this book really reminded me of? If you take away all the religious themes of the movie I'm about to say, if you took away all the religious themes and stuff, What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams.
Oh, yeah.
Where he has to go to hell to get his wife, and then he's on this adventure, and he's going through all these fucking crazy worlds and all this fucking wild shit.
It's a lot of weird, it's like that mixed with Wizard of the Oz, mixed with, a whole bunch of things you could throw in there.
And it was, you know what? It was just a lot of fun, even though so much awful shit happened. And it was very imaginative.
And I would definitely read, I know we were talking about, how good it is at this time, but I would definitely read, a writer's cut.
Yeah.
Of, especially if it explored more of that universe.
Storming out there.
Yeah. Maybe it won't be so hot, but I think it'd just be hotter.
Lightning. Probably catch everything on fire. The dialogue in this, though, which we touched on, was so good.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it was with Fremona, who's hilarious.
I know that's whenever I would really, burn through, a chapter if there was,
a lot of talk. You go so fast.
Ben and Crab or Ben and Cisco, those.
Very natural. Yeah, even with the Cisco character, who was a, 1400s explorer, he has that kind of way of speaking. It was still so well done. Every character interaction was original. So you didn't have bleed over, the way he talked to Crab, which was himself. That's not how he talked to Cisco, which wasn't how he talked to Fremona, which wasn't how he talked to the producer or the executive producer. Everybody had their own way of speaking.
As I was reading this, I was just so desperately, I just wanted to get adapted into like a graphic novel.
Yeah, that'd be awesome to see it.
Yeah, because like I would say like a movie or a show that'd be kind of cool too. But I think the graphic novel would be the perfect.
Like when he's walking through the body parts, you could just show his face with his eyes closed, and have panels where it's just like different noises, like splat, splunk, like, and then finally when he's climbing up the mountain, looks back and you see.
Yeah, just see the smokers and all the different creatures, and just the landscapes of everything and the dog face, I think that would be that. Somebody...
What this book also did very well was make you want to explore the unexplorable.
Yeah.
It made you want to get off the path and see what the fuck is out there, but you can't ever get off the path.
Or like, and it also was just like, I don't know. Did you ever get also freaked out reading this? Like obviously this thing could never ever happen, but like what about if it happened to you? Like, do you think you could stay on the path?
It would be hard. See, you'd want to know the answers, but when you get stuck digging a ditch for 10 years, like, fuck, that would suck. Build a castle by hand, you're the only guy, for 6 years, and then another guy comes who you have nothing in common with because he's from the 1400s. To end this, is there anything in the book or about the book you didn't like?
No.
I really thought there was going to be stuff I didn't like, because I'm a very literary guy, too, so I didn't think I thought it would be kind of just a fun fluff read, but it definitely had enough deeper things in it that caught my interest too, like with the family, and it wasn't just like fun wild story. There was a lot in it. I don't think there was anything I didn't like.
And just the way he, like you said, with the family stuff or just different aspects, like he did a good job of like giving you enough but not too much or not enough. Like, you know what I mean? Like the family wasn't
nothing was overwritten either.
Yeah, like the family wasn't like constant. Like, okay, I get it. You want to see your family. He would find his spots for things, and they all worked out really well.
Yeah, because there's so much of the story that could have been really boring, like the crab going under the fucking ocean for however long.
Nope.
Or obviously the desert scene, or him trapped in a shitty dungeon for weeks and weeks and weeks, or months, or he don't even know how long. Like, there's so many scenes that could have just been super boring, especially since most of the places he went to were deserted.
And he was by himself.
Yeah. Like, all the way up to the beach place.
Even when he was with Crab, he was by himself.
Yeah. Just himself. That's actually very sad. The only actual companion he had was Cisco. That was the only guy that wasn't made up.
Yeah.
Because everyone else was just made up. They're not real.
Where are they?
Again, you don't know. We'll leave you folks with that. If you want to check out our stuff on DPW, go to drunkenpenwriting.com. We got a bunch of stuff. I didn't mean for this episode to be so long, but like the book, you just have to break it down.
So is this just a
bookcast episode?
Okay.
Bookcast. You can check us out on Twitter at Drunk Pen Writing, Instagram Drunken Pen Writing, Facebook same. Yeah, that's all I got, man. How about you, Ash?
Yeah, guys, I really like that. I was on the podcast this whole time.
You guys are so cool and awesome.
You guys are like the nicest. You have such great beards.
Fucking just disappeared. Finally got this piece of shit computer working, and then his dies.